Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you very, very much for coming. This is a very important topic on which we need to raise public awareness. We're here to announce our new anti-human trafficking initiative and expansion to Western Avenue. I'm Hydee Feldstein Soto, your Los Angeles City Attorney. I want to thank everyone who's here and all of our partners for their ongoing commitment to combating human trafficking, to assisting survivors, and to assisting the victims of this crime. Our district attorney, Nathan Hochman, and his team, including Deputy District Attorney Gilbert Wright and Guillermo Santizo, are here on behalf of the DA's office, and my office, with our misdemeanor jurisdiction, could not possibly do this work without our district attorney's office joining hands. The West Bureau LAPD team is here today, and particularly the Olympic and the Hollywood divisions will be involved in this work. They are represented by Deputy Chief Gerald Woodyard and Captain Rachel Rodriguez with the Olympic Division, and we are so pleased to continue this partnership. We actually started together on Figueroa Street 3 years ago now. And then Nayali May, who is the executive director of Journey Out. For those of you who have attended these press conferences before, you may have heard me mention Journey Out because they are an indispensable partner to all of our efforts, particularly in working with young children and victims. So now you get to hear from the director herself. I also want to acknowledge and to very much thank Council Member Hugo Soto Martinez and his team in Council District 13 for their collaboration, cooperation, and support for this critical effort. We have multiple city agencies in the city of Los Angeles who have devoted resources and time and creative solutions to try to help us in this work, most notably underneath the Board of Public Works, the Bureau of Street Lighting, the dark streets are a problem, the Department of Sanitation, and many others. Finally, and most importantly, I could not do this work in this office without the dedicated attorneys and other legal professionals in my office who really do the work on a day-to-day basis, and that is led by Khalil Rashid, here to my left, who has really taken the laboring oar, both on Figueroa Street and on Western. So I want to start with what's important about this work. What are we trying to accomplish? Because that's the single most important approach to all of this. We start with helping the victims. When a woman or a child or a man or a boy is trafficked for sex, they are a victim, and shifting the criminalization of the conduct and the transaction away from the victims who are trafficked to the exploiters, to the buyers and exploiters, as the district attorney would put it, or to the Johns, as I call it in shorthand, and to the profiteers and the predators and the traffickers who make money off other people's flesh, is really a signature shift in how law enforcement approaches these issues and the blight that it causes in our neighborhoods. So we shift the criminalization from the trafficked victims to the Johns, the buyers, the exploiters, the predators, and the profiteers. The second objective is to disrupt the demand. Because as long as you continue to have demand, and as long as you continue to have folks who come to areas and to neighborhoods to purchase sex, especially from minors, the people, the children involved, are treated almost like inventory, and it just continues. So disrupting that demand and stopping the Johns from thinking that they can get away with this kind of a transaction in broad daylight is our second objective. The third objective is to improve our environment, to take the opportunity to turn streetlights back on, to solve some blight, and to fix our neighborhoods. And then fourth, we try to jail, and we do try to jail predators, profiteers, and pimps. We try to put them away where they can't go out and find new victims. And finally, we need to increase public awareness, and that's where you all come in. The kind of resources that it takes to clean this sort of a problem only comes with public awareness and public pressure. So we are formally launching the Western Avenue Initiative. While the coalition to address this problem is new, as you will hear, the illegal activity along Western is not new. It was previously part of the notorious Hollywood corridor, and when Hollywood development came about and really pushed out the activity, it died down somewhat for a number of years. There's been a resurgence of sex and human trafficking along the traditional corridor along Western, and it's led also to an uptick in gang-related activity. The goals in our approach to this initiative are the same, although we're focused much more on increasing public awareness as we approach the World Cup and other world events in Los Angeles. January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. I won't make the same mistake I did in our last press conference where I left out the word prevention. The theme this year is Stronger Connections, Stronger Futures. Before I close, I want to remind people about the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which accepts and offers 24/7 confidential reports and assistance. You can call them at 888-373-7888. The Western Avenue corridor, just for your information, is right here up on this graphic, and it stretches from Santa Monica Boulevard down to Olympic Boulevard along Western Avenue. The last graphic we have for you is as part of our disruption of demand of the Johns. As many of you may have heard me talk about, we have frequently referenced Dear John letters that we sent out to registered owners of vehicles that have been seen in the area purchasing sexual services from workers and minors. This is an example of such a letter signed by none other than Chief Woodyard right here from June of 2023, and we have literally sent out thousands of these letters in the last 3 years. The registered owner of the vehicle is usually the spouse. It is probably one of the most effective deterrents that we have. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to our District Attorney, Nathan Hochman, whose leadership and assistance is absolutely invaluable in making sure that this initiative is not only launched, but successfully landed. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nathan Hochman. I'm the District Attorney of Los Angeles County. I would first like to thank our City Attorney, Hydee Feldstein Soto, not just for her launching of this Western Avenue anti-human trafficking initiative, but her multi-year commitment to this issue. Why do we care about this issue? Why is human trafficking something that not only should law enforcement care about, but every single person in Los Angeles County should care about? I'll tell you why. Because we use words like human trafficking, sex trafficking, but what it comes down to is this. Often these will be young girls or young men or young boys, sometimes young women and sometimes young men. But let's focus on the young girls. They often come from broken homes. They're runaways. They've aged out of the foster child system. They've been lured to Los Angeles City or County by these pimps and predators, promising them fame and fortune when they get here. But what happens when these pimps get a hold of these young girls? Often they get them addicted to drugs. They take their identifications away. They alone are the ones to provide them with shelter, with food, with the scant clothing that they get. But there's a price for that. What they demand in return is for these young girls to perform sexual acts for men over and over and over again. And whatever amount of money they get goes right to the pimp. And then they got to do it the next day, and the next day, and the next day. This is why the Attorney General of California has called human trafficking essentially modern-day slavery. Sadly, Los Angeles City and County are one of the epicenters of the human sex trafficking industry. So we need to care about this, because who else is going to stand up for some of the most vulnerable people in our society if it is not us? We can judge our society by how the most vulnerable in it are treated, and right now our society is lacking. We are not fulfilling our promise to the goals that we should hold very high, that we can actually promote an environment where young girls and young boys are not the victims of the predators and the traffickers and the pimps out there. We also If people want a little self-interest, you can ask, do they want to live in a community where young girls are being peddled on their streets, not just at night, but during the day as well? That you can actually drive down Western Avenue. You can drive down the Figueroa corridor. You can drive down in Long Beach, the major corridors in Long Beach. You can go to Compton on Long Beach Boulevard. You can go over to Pomona on Holt Avenue. You can go to the Valley on Sepulveda Boulevard. The fact that I even have to talk about multiple corridors of human sex trafficking in Los Angeles County, I will tell you, is an absolute disgrace. It's a disgrace that law enforcement, the city attorney's office, the DA's office are going to commit serious resources to taking it to all three prongs of this issue. First prong, we got the human traffickers and the pimps. These folks are despicable. And we have done our best to put these folks in jail for as long as we can. In the last year alone, we have put two of them, Kadar Edmonds, in prison for over 18 years. We have put Marcus Jones, another pimp that was peddling a 15-year-old girl in the Figueroa corridor. He's going to prison for over 12 years. And we're going to go ahead and put the pimps, the predators, the traffickers in prison for as long as we possibly can. But as City Attorney Feldstein Soto said, the supply side of the problem is just one side of that criminal equation. The other side is the demand side. And all too often, what I call the sexual exploiters, these are the buyers, the Johns, have gotten in some ways a free pass. They've gotten occasionally these letters, or the letters go out to the registered owners of the cars. But let me send a direct message to the people, and we're talking about usually men, who want to get in their cars and drive to these corridors because they're seeking to buy sex from young underage girls. You two are despicable, absolutely despicable. And here's what we're going to do about it. We have now brought out felony prosecutions to join the city attorney's misdemeanor prosecutions to do our best to put you in state prison. We are going to be unrelentless, or actually we will be relentless in going after you to make sure that you understand that you are a cause of this problem. If the demand did not exist, there would be no incentive for these pimps and predators to go ahead and take advantage of these young girls and make them effectively their slaves, because they would not be getting any money in exchange for that slavery. So we're going to dry up the demand side. One of the things we offered in our last press conference when we were on the Figueroa corridor is 7 different ideas that we're going to take to the state legislature, and we actually put this on our DA website to have people vote on which of the 7 or all 7 of the enhanced penalties against these sexual exploiters and buyers or Johns will you think is appropriate. Let me tell you my favorite one. I want to create a registry, a website, sort of modeled on our Megan's Law, dealing with the sexual predators, where if you get convicted of being one of these buyers of underage sex, or even buyers of any of the commercial sex exploitation that's going on, I'm going to put your picture and your name on a website. And if I put it on a website after you've been convicted of this crime, guess who's going to see it? The entire world. Because that's the power of the internet. Your name and your picture will now be broadcast to the entire world, exposing your sickness for going ahead and basically being part of an industry that is preying on young girls and young boys. That would be deterrence. Because ultimately what we're trying to create is an environment that deters these sexual exploiters from going ahead and getting in their car at night or even during the day, going down to these corridors, taking out cash from their pocket and giving it effectively to a pimp and saying, I want that young girl for sex right now. Let's call it what it is. We want to basically tell the demand side, these buyers, that you are not going to get a free shake anymore. you're going to go ahead and have your picture or be shamed or go to prison. Now we'll see what happens. Because the one thing that this group up here will not tolerate is doing nothing. Just the opposite. This initiative is incredibly powerful to go after Western Avenue. And you see this chart between Olympic and Santa Monica? We need to dry up the entire supply so that no car, no person can go from Olympic to Santa Monica, and I would add from anywhere in this county, and purchase young girls and young boys for sex any longer. Now, this is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. But the fact that it exists in a month in no way means that we are treating this as a 1-month exercise. This is a 365 exercise. So please be aware, you pimps, you predators, and you basically traffickers. Please be aware, you exploiters, you buyers, you Johns. We're coming after you. And again, this is your warning shot. Don't come to me after you're sitting there in handcuffs in prison and asking for mercy and say, I didn't know that this effort's going to happen. This is your warning. Today is your warning. Because if we do catch you, yes, we will do our best to put you in state prison and shame you. Again, thank you so much, City Attorney Hydee Feldstein Soto, for her tremendous commitment to this effort. Thank you to your office. Thank you to the members of my office, Gilbert Wright, the Assistant District Attorney, and Guillermo Santiso, who's the head deputy of sex crimes. Their efforts and law enforcement efforts and working with our community groups is the only way we're going to be able to solve this problem. Thank you very much.
And with that, I'd like you to hear, please, from Nayeli May, who is our partner from Journey Out. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm very proud to lead Journey Out, an organization that has served LA City and County for over 40 years now. And our focus is to help survivors and victims of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. This is incredibly important work because all of these efforts have to work together in order to be effective. These victims and survivors need resources, and that's where community groups such as ours come into effect. These individuals often have nothing, absolutely nothing but whatever they may be wearing in that moment. They often call us and need emergency housing, food, legal services, you name it. It really varies person by person. And if they don't have resources and support, what other option would they have? They're being coerced, they're being threatened. It's such a violent act that they experience on a daily basis. So it's really important for them to also feel like they have other options, and that's where we try to come in. Our teams are out there 24/7, every day of the year, and we do crisis intervention, helping a person in an emergency situation, onto long-term case management and supportive services, because we want to be able to provide a person with other options, with whatever it is that they're seeking, whether it be education, other forms of employment. In order to do that, though, they need resources and they need support. So I'm very grateful to our city for really coming together and viewing this as a multi-pronged approach to this important topic. Thank you all very much, and thank you for having me.
I think Nayeli's a bit modest. This is the most important part of the work right here. Because at the end of the day, when the rest of us say we've rescued 250 minors, whether it's Journey Out or it's one of the other organizations that we partner with, like Forgotten Children or Sister Friends or Run to Rescue, it is on them to take people who have been traumatized, terrified, who need everything from tattoo removal to addiction services to mental health services to trauma-centered care, and help these youngsters believe in a future and give them light and hope. And so, Nayeli, I just really want to commend you for all the wonderful work you've done. With that, I'd like to introduce our deputy chief, our wonderful deputy chief, who I first met in 2023, Gerald Woodyard.
Very difficult to follow the district attorney and the city attorney, but I am excited. And if you look to my left and look to my right, this is a holistic approach to a serious problem. But I'm not the one that's leading it. This work started back in 2023 when I was the deputy chief down in Operation South Bureau, and I had the opportunity to work with City Attorney Feldstein, Soto. And why does it matter to me? It matters to me because I have a young daughter, I have a young son. And so when I see these young women and young men out there being exploited, it impacts me because that's someone's daughter, that's someone's son. So it's been a priority for me in West Bureau once I landed here, and I'm extremely excited about the leadership team I have here because they know the problems that have occurred on the Figueroa corridor. So the leadership team here on Olympic Division is Rachel Rodriguez, which she has the lion's share of the issue, as well as Manny Chavez. He's a captain, she's a captain of Hollywood. When we're talking about human trafficking, specifically human trafficking, sex trafficking, it's just not that. My concern is this. There is a gang nexus to this. In South Bureau, there's a gang nexus. It's a lot of money that gang members are acquiring because they're exploiting kids. So it's a problem. But I'm excited because it's been something that we're focused on, not just from West Bureau, from the Office of Operations, which is headed by Chief Hydee, and by the department. So with that being said, rest assured that we're going to focus on this, but I'm excited about this collaboration. It's holistic. It's just not LAPD. The rest piece, we can do that all day. But it's when we get the grassroots organizations, when we get the city attorney, the district attorney on the same page, that's when we can have an impact. I've seen the impact down in South Bureau. I'm excited about the impact that we're going to have here in West Bureau. With that being said, I'd like to bring up Captain Rachel Rodriguez.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Captain Rachel Rodriguez. I'm the commanding officer of Olympic area. So the Western Corridor has historically been known for human trafficking. As a vice officer who worked Olympic Division 10 years ago, and now as the commanding officer that oversees this area, I've seen firsthand the proliferation of human trafficking that is occurring in our local neighborhoods. Over the last year, we concentrated our efforts to address this growing concern. From a law enforcement perspective, we have concentrated our efforts to apprehend those that are trafficking our young women along this corridor. And in 2025, along with our Olympic Vice units, as well as Operations West Bureau Vice units, we've made 372 arrests. That included 18 arrests of pimps or panderers and 60 arrests that included lewd conduct. And in this effort, we've worked with our Assistant United States Attorney, our District Attorney, and our City Attorney on the prosecutions of those that take advantage of these young women. But our partnerships are also with our nonprofit organizations that include Journey Out and Run to Rescue, who come out on these task force with our vice units. And that's extremely important, as they are the ones that firsthand get to talk to these women and provide them opportunities outside of this lifestyle, and encourage them to reunite with their families, seek services that they don't currently have. And we understand that this is not something that we can enforce our way out of. We do have to change the environmental design of our neighborhood, and that is working with our city partners when it comes to the Los Angeles Sanitation and our Bureau of Street Lighting to increase lighting in the neighborhood, take away the dark avenues, the dark streets that are currently occurring, as well as making left turns very difficult for our Johns that are out there. And hopefully with this partnership, we can help make this neighborhood a little bit safer. I think most importantly, I'd like to recognize my Olympic senior lead officers who go out and make sure that there's safe passages for our young students that are around our schools. And this is important to prevent their view of the women that are being trafficked and the men that could potentially traffic them. And so I'd like to recognize those men and women that go out there daily to make sure our children are safe. I'd like to end with, although we have limited resources within law enforcement currently, we continue to dedicate our time to this area. And we want to ensure that not only the quality of life for these young women that are being trafficked, but the quality of life of everybody in this neighborhood, to make sure you have a safe place to walk, to live, to work, to commute. And that's our dedication to you. So thank you.
Rachel? I think that concludes the formal part of this press conference. I was offered a closing, but I don't think I have much to say. Most things have been said. For our neighborhoods, for our victims, we're here for you. And for the pimps, the predators, the traffickers, the Johns, I don't know that I'm quite as eloquent as our district attorney, but I can echo him. We're coming after you. We've been coming after you. And we are determined to stop this blight throughout our city. Happy to take questions, and you can ask of just about anybody who's up here if you do have questions.
Any idea how many people in LA County we're talking about being trafficked? Do you guys have any idea?
I don't think we've broken it down that way to the best of my knowledge. Do you have an answer for that? No. What we do have statistics on is what we've rescued. Okay, so like for example, on the Figueroa corridor, the LAPD and our service providers have rescued something north of 250 minors in the first 2 years of operation of that program. Now, you need to understand we don't force anyone into accepting services. So that is young people who've been offered a way out and have taken the hand. I still remember the first 14-year-old that we rescued off the Figueroa corridor. That was a successful reunification with her biological family. We reunited her with her grandmother. And the service providers really provided the tattoo removal, the safe space, the kind of cocoon to heal for the first several months. And now my understanding is she is in high school under a different name than she was on the street, and doing quite well. So those aren't all the success stories. There is some recidivism. If we don't move a child successfully into a more permanent environment, they often wind up back. Understand that when you take a young person away from a pimp, they often chase them. They come back after them. They try to intimidate, they bully, they do all kinds of things to get back what they view as their property, as their living. And so we have done some things in Sacramento already. The DA and I have sponsored a bill that passed and became law this year, which made the intimidation and the bullying a separate offense. So that when a pimp goes back after a victim, that's a separate crime for which that individual can be arrested. I sponsored and wrote a bill. I took it up to Sacramento for the third time this year, and it finally passed, to close what's called what I used to call the Jeffrey Epstein loophole in our sex offenders registry. Up until January 1st, 2026, you could have illegal sexual intercourse with a 14 to 17-year-old, and you were not automatically registrable as a sex offender. Senator Susan Rubio carried bill number 680, and that loophole now has been closed. We will continue to take up bills to provide law enforcement with tools to do their job. I don't think it was my office. Was it yours on the loitering for Johns? Do you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Certainly. So actually, when I was running for office, I had a chance to visit Compton and speak with the mayor of Compton, Emma Sharif. She took me down to Long Beach Boulevard. And what she showed me was literally scantily clad young girls and young women in the middle of the day, very close to where the school was located. And I asked her, how did this happen? And she said, well, in the past, they had laws called loitering to commit prostitution. And those loitering laws allowed the police to go ahead and pick up or certainly confront these women who were loitering to commit prostitution before they actually engaged in the act of prostitution. And it helped get a lot of these young women and young girls into these community-based programs to get the treatment they need, and also helped, again, clear the streets, make it clearer to the pimps that the police would be active. And then those laws went away. The state legislature took those laws away for reasons that still remain unknown to me. As to their common sense, I should say. I obviously know that they did it. I know the justification for they did it and couldn't disagree more. I would argue that many of those state legislators who took those laws away never spoke to Emma Sharif, the mayor of Compton, to see the impact it would have. Because once you took that tool away from law enforcement, now law enforcement literally had to wait until the act of prostitution was being committed before they could take any action. So that led a lot more young girls to be on the street, peddling their wares for the pimps, knowing that law enforcement couldn't take action. So recently those laws have been brought back. And I fully expect law enforcement to use those tools that they now have to go ahead and deal with this problem proactively, before you have to have a young girl in the middle of a sexual act before law enforcement can act. We are working and using conspiracy laws, felony conspiracy laws, between a sex worker and the sex buyer, the exploiter, to go ahead and bring these charges, particularly against the sex buyer. And these are felony charges that could land the sex buyer in prison. So again, we are using the new tool, the tools that we have and the tools that we've now been granted to really tackle both the supply and the demand sides of this equation.
Other questions from anybody?
I also wanted to ask Mr. Woodyer, do you think I could ask you, what are the reactions of the Johns when you arrest them typically? And what are the reactions of the young women when you're trying to help them? Are they really resistant? Do you think you could talk about those? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Captain Rodriguez.
Captain Rodriguez, okay.
So thank you. I will address first the Johns that are out there. Most of the time it's very shameful. Like when they become they're arrested, they're put in the back of a black and white police vehicle. They are ashamed because they have kids at home and they have families at home, and the last thing they want to do is go back home and say, I was arrested for prostitution. Now, when it comes to the young women that we take into custody, it really is dependent on their history, where they came from, their background, their associations, how long they've been with their pimp, are they newer with their pimp? And what we try to do as law enforcement is get our nonprofit organizations like Journey Out and Run to Rescue. That's why they're a part of our task force. So when we take them into custody, the first thing that we like to do is give them the opportunity to speak with these folks that are out with us, because they are able to develop a rapport that is a lot easier than I can with a badge and a uniform and a gun on, right? And so when we give them that opportunity, we give them the ability to ask for resources. And if they're too scared at that time, at least a contact phone number that they can reach out to at a later time. And beyond that, we also are just out there talking to the women. Even if we're not arresting them, our officers are just trying to figure out who they are, if they just need a meal. If we can get them an Uber out of the location, whatever the case may be, our first approach in all this is to save these young women that are on the street.
Captain,
yes.
Have you guys considered working with like LUSD, the school district, and maybe starting programs, classes, things like that to get
Okay, please. Yeah.
before you get on the street?
I'm actually going to be at the school board meeting today to talk about exactly that kind of initiative in partnership with some of the folks up here. We want to go into the schools and provide safety and safe passage and services to students who are at risk. We want to be sure that administrators and teachers and adults in the area recognize the vulnerabilities and the signs of seduction and appropriation of the pimps. I mean, I will tell you that I was on Figueroa in broad daylight, I think week before last, and was walking with a team just to take a look at the area, and it's back. I mean, the warm weather has brought back out some of the young people. And there was a young woman literally wearing nothing except covering her nipples. And then in the front and from the back, she looked completely naked. And the part that was terrifying was half a block behind her was her binder. Okay, there was an older woman walking to watch her. And a lot of the difficulty with the youngsters, and especially when they come out of the schools, and they're often seduced by someone who promises them the sun, the moon, and the stars. I mean, I tell a story about a 14-year-old who, was with a 41-year-old man who said to her, "Oh, we're meant to be together. Even our ages match. Yours is 1-4 and mine is 4-1. Now that sounds absurd to you, doesn't it? But to the mind of a 14-year-old looking for a home, looking for love, looking for safety, it's very seductive. And so, yes, we need to start educating our young people. We don't want to expose them to things that are not age appropriate. We have to do it hand in hand with LAUSD, with the schools themselves. So we will be trying to work to expand that work. Did you want to add something to that, Captain?
So I do want to applaud LAUSD. We do a safety collaboration meeting quarterly, and that gives law enforcement an opportunity to talk with not only principals, directors, but teachers, and then the social workers that are in the school. And so we are able to collaborate, make sure our message is out there to our teachers. So when they see something, or their school administrators, when they are able to see something, a broken home, this could potentially be a victim, this is a victim, they know that we have resources for them. So it's, again, a collaboration that we look to strengthen as we move through with the city attorney on that.
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Thank you very, very much for covering this topic. We hope to see you again. We hope to continue to make progress across our city and across our county. So thanks again for coming.